Good afternoon, everyone. This is Richard
Hello.
McCarthy. Welcome to the Slow Food USA National Call. Today being what we hoped would be the start of the year. Already the month of January is evaporating, but we are off to a very exciting year. My name is Richard McCarthy. I am the Executive Director for Slow Food USA. We've got a wonderful team of presentations for you this hour. Before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping things. I know this is easier said than done, and if you're not able to do it, we will try and do it from our end, is that when you join the call to mute yourself. This is especially important if you're calling on a telephone and not calling in via the computer. We have noticed over the years that this is often for those who drive or in airports or out on the streets where the noise becomes overwhelming, for the call. We will be recording this call so that if you missed something or you want to share this with your network locally, or if you're in one of the thematic networks, we will be able to share this, for after the call. And if you have any questions, we're going to be tackling a lot of information, and I know that we won't be able to probably respond to all of the questions during the call, and so we can do some follow-up. But if you type them into the comment box, if you've used this GoToMeeting before, you'll see a comment box on the right, or you could email them to anna@slowfoodusa.org. And with that, I think we should probably get going. I am thrilled to see so many people on this call. I know that we'll pick up some folks as we go. I wanted to share with you what I have in store for us in 2018. It boggles my mind that that's where we are in 2018. We've got a very big year ahead of us. I want to thank you all for rallying the way you did around both the national and international work of this past year and the work that you've done locally. We're beginning to sift through the chapter reports if you are connected to a local chapter, and we continue to be stunned by the amazing work that you do, and what you do is what makes Slow Food great. Building on the Slow Food Menu for Change campaign, which speaks to, I think, a new territory for us, which is an international campaign that we in the US have played a strategic role in helping to shape, to match concrete, practical action with larger thematic priorities. We came out of Slow Food Nations. Some of us you could describe in sort of a post-traumatic stress disorder. We came out of Slow Food Nations in 2017 and dove almost immediately into our September annual membership campaign, which then led straight into the Slow Food Menu for Change campaign, which we launched in Chengdu in China in late September. I think some of you on this call were with us in Chengdu, and this Menu for Change campaign incorporated some very discrete calls to action. In particular, the Eat Local Challenge in October, where we had almost 4,000 participants around the world, 250 chefs who participated in the Meatless Monday Arc of Taste campaign, in order to not just reduce meat consumption, but embrace biodiversity, working with our partner Anson Mills. This notion of working with partners, strategic nonprofit partners, as well as corporate ones, is something that I think we're going to see more of this next year, especially as we weave into the next edition of Slow Food Nations. Now, this idea of there being a disciplined single thread for a campaign is something that will continue in this year, both here in the US as well as working internationally. And I think this fusion between us as a national entity that is part of a global community is a thread that you will see, and I'm excited to say I think you will see even stronger beginning this year. So the campaign thread will be food for change, and we can talk a little bit about this in a few moments. But this will run throughout the year, so it'll provide a context and a brand for our spring campaign, which Anna Muley, our communications director, will give you a little bit of insight in a few moments, into Slow Food Nations. I think incorporating into our public policy advocacy. Our policy committee has been extremely active these past few months as we face what we hope will be a farm bill. As well as into Terra Madre, and then beyond as we look into the next fall, where we hope to see a return of the local challenge, as well as more of the work with the Chefs Alliance as we embrace Meatless Monday and other efforts. What you can probably hear there is someone who just joined us, and welcome, and they just figured out that they need to hit their mute button, so thank you for doing that. Now, changes at the international level, which I think were evident in Chengdu at the International Congress when the international statute was passed, is bringing on a greater spirit and intentionality around collaborating at the national and international levels in ways that we haven't really succeeded in before. We are beside ourselves that someone whom many of you may know, Elisa Di Michaelis, will be joining the Slow Food Nations team, and by joining it, I mean physically joining us in Denver beginning in late February to help plan and execute a gathering which, though may be housed inside the United States, is an expression of our internationalism. So she will be here bringing her expertise, her knowledge of the network, especially working with Turtle Island, working with Slow Food Canada, Slow Food Mexico, Slow Food Cuba, many of the international components that made Slow Food Nations so unlike other gatherings in the US. So we are thrilled that they will be leaning heavily into Slow Food Nations to make it something of a Terra Madre of the Americas, and that is our hope as it evolves each year as both an outward-facing festival as well as an internal-facing conference for those of us who are committed to the snail and want to get together to learn and grow together. The international national nexus will also be evident in the campaigns. And we're also seeing it in places that we only dreamt of before, which is in Slow Wine. Slow Wine is often this amazing Italian traveling roadshow that would hit the US in the winter. It is pushed back to late February and early March, hitting 4 cities, and most importantly is featuring California wines. So California wine producers being recognized and vetted by Slow Food, and I think this is the beginning of some exciting things to come. Now, in keeping with our strategic direction of campaigns, gatherings, and partnerships, we are forging new partnerships for the campaigns and for Slow Food Nations. Staging Slow Food Nations in July as an annual festival that, again, is both inward-looking. So we need you and turn to you for both programming and exhibitors for Slow Food Nations, but also outward-looking to engage the general public. We found last year that as many as 40% of those in attendance had never even heard of Slow Food. So this is sort of the importance and need for an annual, recurring, outward-facing festival. We also recognize that this places you as leaders in our network in something of a quandary as to where to devote resources. For Turin, for Terra Madre, or in Denver for Slow Food Nations. We will have Elisa joining us on this call in a few moments, and she can talk about some of the exciting changes in store for the next edition of Terra Madre. But I know that in particular for Slow Food Nations, I encourage you to join us to shape the future of slow food for a full-day leader summit on the Friday, the 13th of July, before the public festival begins that evening. This will follow on in the format of meetings that we had in Chengdu, small group, less formal, opportunities to respond to what we heard from participants the first year, which was we want more time just with ourselves and to informally get to know each other, to do meetups. So we're looking for help to design programming for the first half of the day in meetups. We are also looking to you, hoping that you can showcase the farmers, the food producers, artisans from your particular region as exhibitors. Now, on this call, we'll also describe some of the changes in store for Terra Madre, some of the format changes which point to us really rethinking whether a booth, a Slow Food USA booth, makes sense, as opposed to deploying our talent and our food traditions and presentations in what I think will be many more pop-up opportunities in the programming. And of course, we will have the national meeting. Now, while we may easily get pushed and pulled by the prevailing winds and competing political priorities, we have pledged to Slow Food International and to us to keep activity aligned with a single thread of food for change. And this is, building on the menu for change, but we've truncated it to make it simpler. I think we learned this past year how to refine the campaign messaging. And, this puts our focus on climate change and how food is all of these three things: a cause, a victim, and a solution in climate change discourse. This also puts the emphasis on change, the changes that we must make in our lives, in our policies, in our practices of changing food waste, changing meat consumption, etc. So this language will guide us throughout the year. This is also an opportunity to place food on an otherwise overwhelming discourse by providing a hopeful pathway via food. So we hope that this thread will be evident in the Slow Wine tour, Atlanta, Houston, LA, San Francisco, New York City, later this winter. At Slow Fish, the Slow Fish Network is organizing an event in mid-April in San Francisco. The Meatless Monday campaigns with the Chefs Alliance, and of course with the Plant a Seed campaign, which we're just getting ready to pull together. And with that, I think I could turn it over to you, Anna, to give us some insight as to what the calls to action are with the spring campaign.
Thanks, Richard, and hi, everyone. He's like right there. We're in a small office here. And I'm just going to mute you, Richard, so you don't hear an echo. Okay. Okay, perfect. So we did the Plant a Seed campaign last year, and I was really excited to see people come together, different communities that maybe don't always join forces here. So school gardens joining with school slow food chapters, joining with Arc of Taste committees, joining with individuals who maybe are members but aren't necessarily near a chapter or connected to a chapter. And so we are going to roll out a very similar campaign to what we did in the spring last year, the Plant a Seed campaign. The goal here is really to activate the Arc of Taste, right? So we have this amazing catalog of Arc of Taste products on our website. And often I think it's hard for people to figure out what to do with that amazing resource and how to actually participate in it. So what we'll be doing is putting together Arc of Taste kits. Our goal is to get 1,000 gardens throughout the U.S. to participate in this. So a combination of schools, of slow food chapters, and of individuals. We're focusing on the three sisters plants, so a bean, a corn, and a squash. And those of you who are at Slow Food Nations last summer will remember Alice Waters' lunch, where she focused on the three sisters and talked about how they really grow well together and, are amazing to eat together as well. So the contents of our kit will be the Christmas lima bean, Stowell's evergreen sweet corn, and the Long Island cheese pumpkin. So I'm excited for these to highlight the stories and backgrounds of these seeds from the Ark of Taste, and to encourage people to plant them and eat them and get them in the ground. So in the kits that we put together, there'll be those 3 seed packets, and then some additional fun materials for you to share about slow food and get people excited and about the Ark of Taste, and get slow food a little more visible. So one of the things I'm most excited about in the kit is a bunting like you see behind me, except slightly different. So it'll have the snail and slow food on it that you can hang on your garden or behind you for a video chat or whatever you want. It will also include some plant stakes, some nice stickers, and then some political advocacy, so that we are always tying policy into the campaigns that we do. So we'll be talking about seed saving legislation and how biodiversity plays a role in policy. And then we're working with a company called Davinas, which is actually based in Italy, and they use slow food Presidia ingredients in hair care products, which is really cool. So it's another way that a company is actually using ARC and Presidia in their products. So we will be just giving you a sample so you can try that as part of a longer-term relationship that we're building with Davinas. So these kits will be free for chapters, just like last year. So in early February, I will put out a form for chapters to request a kit, 1 kit per chapter. And we have a limited amount available for free for schools as well. Then we'll give a discount rate for the other schools. Then we'll charge about $45 for individuals to purchase this kit. So the hope is that that fee for individuals will help cover some of the costs for chapters and schools. We really want school gardens to participate in this. We want kids to be involved. I think kids planting seeds is one of the most powerful images that we have, and the most powerful ways that we get kids to engage with slow food. Let me see here. So how can you get involved as a chapter? You can definitely request a kit. As I said, those will be available in early February. Then last year we did this the slow food dig-in around Earth Day. We'd like to try that again. So Earth Day, April 22nd, is a Sunday this year, and it will be a Give What You Can day. And I think it's a nice opportunity to highlight some kind of volunteer activity where you invite people to, get their hands in the dirt and plant with you, to volunteer at whatever garden you have going on in your communities. So of course, we're not forcing you to hold an event on Earth Day, but as an opportunity where chapters can rally together around a day and around this campaign. The other thing you can do is advertise this to your networks as we roll out the kits for individuals. You can make this available to your networks also, so that people are planting these seeds together. Then we have a limited number of kits for influencers. So if there's someone in your network who has a wide social media following, or someone who could really help get the word out to a broader audience, you can let me know so that we can mail them a kit for free, and they can participate in the campaign. And then lastly, we'll be asking for your stories, right? To share with us how you use the Ark of Taste in your communities and in your chapter. We want to highlight some of those stories from school gardens and from community gardens about, what you're doing with the Ark. So I'll be looking for photo submissions and stories, and really trying to tell the story of the Ark and of the importance of gardens. So we are still working on this campaign. It is, in front of me, I have the mock-ups for the design. It's still a work in progress. So there's a lot of opportunity for your feedback and your ideas. And it's also an opportunity for chapters to localize this campaign, right? So I'm giving the broad toolkit that you can use, but you can unpack it in any way that you want. If you want to do more events around it, if you just want to connect it to a school garden, if you want to connect it to chefs or to farmers, there's definitely space for all of that. So I just wanted to give you resources and kind of a framework for the spring campaign. We'll also be tying this campaign into Slow Food Nations and into Terra Madre so that this theme continues. So in both events, biodiversity and seeds will be a key theme. So I think we'll have these kits for sale also at Slow Food Nations, and we'll continue to talk about why the ARC is important and how to activate those stories. I see one question here. How many seed packets will come with each kit? Yes, one of each variety. That's correct. For schools, we were able to get some other varieties donated, so I'll also be adding some other varieties beyond the Three Sisters. And right, in what ways will messaging tie the Plant a Seed campaign into the Food for Change campaign? It's all the same thing, right? So this is kind of like one of the first campaigns within Food for Change as a theme. So we'll be talking about why biodiversity is important in climate change conversations, why it's important to preserve a wide variety of agrobiodiversity, and so it's all tied together. Have you considered handing out modified Three Sister placemats? Yes, that's exactly what this is. Totally. The creative design does not match exactly, but I love those placemats, and yes, you're reading my mind. Yes, exactly. And we'll make all the assets available for chapters digitally. So if you want to print extra copies, you are most welcome to. And yes, we will work with chefs to create some recipes also. This is getting into we kind of want to get into the planting calendar. So in the spring, we're talking a lot about planting and gardening. And as we move into the harvest season, we'll be talking more about recipes and chefs and cooking. So that's kind of the overall plan here. And yes, we'll include other, Catherine is asking, educational materials for kids explaining biodiversity. Yes, we'll have some of that. We're working with Seed Savers Exchange. They have some really great resources that they're letting us kind of adapt. And yes, we will be sharing a communications calendar so that you know when we're sending out emails and social media. We'll be providing some sample social media posts just like we did last year. So the digital toolkit will involve the logos and like a Facebook banner and some sample posts, etc. Any other questions? You can keep chatting me questions and I'll respond, but I also don't want to delay our call, so let me hand it over to Krista to talk about Slow Food Nations, and I can keep responding to questions in the chat, or we can ask them at the end.
Hi, everyone. This is Krista. I'm sitting in Denver in the Slow Food Nations office here, and I'm glad to give some updates today about what's happening in the Slow Food Nations world. We've got some exciting momentum. We just launched a new local advisory board here in Denver, which is inspiring to me. It reinforces the support from the Denver community and helping to grow this event. And as Richard mentioned, Elisa will be arriving in Denver next month, which I am looking forward to. And we've got about 20 plus exhibitors confirmed for the Taste Marketplace. And also, as you know, we just launched the tickets for the Leader Summit, if you didn't see that already. So things are moving along. I just thought I would share some initial highlights. And Anna, could you help me move to the next page? Thanks. Just overall, once again, Slow Food Nations will take place in Denver, Colorado, and will be hosted again. The main hub will be in Larimer Square in downtown. The theme is consistent with that Richard and Anna were just describing, which is the Food for Change theme, and that will be apparent in the programming and the different ways to engage throughout the event. And just overall at a glance, Friday, July 13th is when things kick off. We will add this year a B2B networking event. That was some feedback that we got from some of the producers who participated in the Taste Marketplace as a way for them to connect with each other, but also to have some opportunities for information sharing about building their brand and distribution and connecting with potential business partners. That day we'll also host the Slow Food Leader Summit, which I'll talk about in more detail in a moment. And then that evening we'll kick off the public-facing part of the weekend with the opening party. And then Saturday and Sunday are the main parts of the public festival. And with last year, we had some key takeaways based on what we saw and feedback that we got from many of you and other participants. And the highlights of that leads to an internal theme we have for Slow Food Nations, which is consolidation. And that's consolidation in scope, in footprint, and which will allow for clearer communication on site during the festival. What that translates to, what I want to share with you are some of the key components that we'll see at Slow Food Nations this year. As you know, Slow Food Nations is an exciting opportunity for our network to engage and connect. It's also a unique gathering to invite the broader public to experience slow food and hopefully be inspired to stay involved. The first 4 components that you see here are those that are going to be heavily marketed to the broader public. And we have a new event production partner coming on to support some of those as well, called Two Parts. And the opening party will kick us off. Similar to last year, the theme will be a welcome to Colorado. Different will be, it will be hosted right in the entire space of Larimer Square where Slow Food Nations will happen. And it will allow for a larger capacity and will really be a sampler of what people can expect throughout the weekend with a welcome to Colorado theme. The Taste Marketplace will continue to be a focal point of this festival, and we will have 100 food producers from around the country and world. And these are producers who align with slow food values of good, clean, and fair, prioritize craft. And we are excited to watch that grow as Slow Food Nations grows. Different this year will be the addition of the Slow Sips Garden. And this will create a shaded communal space right in the middle of Larimer Square that will also feature food and beverage for sale. And it'll be a space where people can gather and just sort of be part of the middle of Slow Food Nations. We'll have different thematic productions for the food and beverage that will be there. And that's part of what we're working on right now. One of the highlights from last year was the Zero Waste Family Dinner that happened on Sunday. That will be back in even bigger force this year. And the team who is thinking about that is excited to showcase that again. As with last year, it will be a family-style dinner that uses food waste that was captured during the festival. And then there will also be programming that will allow people to dive a little bit deeper into the different themes and topics, hands-on workshops, summits, and there'll be the opportunity to follow different themes throughout the weekend. I think an important point here is while last year there may have been a combination of about close to 100 workshops and summits or workshops and talks, this year there will be fewer, which will, I think, make it easier for people to navigate. And the summits will be a collection of talks around certain themes. So they will include speakers, but also could include demonstrations or hands-on activities. And will feature different themes like regenerative agriculture, food justice, food waste, and other things. And we are gathering input on those. So of course, if anyone has any thoughts, please send them our way. And finally, the a big focus will be on how do we create more activations in the Larimer Square area. So in addition to the Taste Marketplace and the Slow Sips Garden, we'll have family activities again this year. So we are engaging the future generation of food. But we're also looking at what else will be in that place, and that will allow people to engage at the free and open part of the festival. So I'd love to touch a little bit more, because a big part of the way this kicks off is with the Leader Summit. And we are working on the detailed design for this, but to give you a high level of what's happening that day on the Friday, July 13th. In the morning will be a collection of informal discussions that will be organized by our network leaders. You'll see requests for proposals coming out from us by March, and we'll look to you for ideas and people who want to stand up to coordinate some of those discussions. Lunch is being confirmed, then we'll move into the afternoon where, as Richard explained earlier, will be similar to the programming in Chengdu, where we'll have a keynote speaker and followed by breakout sessions. So we really invite all of you to participate, to add your voice to the future of slow food. We'll wrap it up with an aperitivo before we all head off to the opening party to kick off the Slow Food Nations Festival for the weekend. So immediately, how can you get involved? If we would encourage everyone to add your voice to be in Denver and participate in the Leader Summit. Those tickets are on sale now. The website is slowfoodnations.org. You can purchase them there. We would encourage everyone to consider organizing a chapter booth in the Taste Marketplace. There were a number of chapters who participated last year in that way. It's a great way to highlight the taste.
Happened, but your timer got messed up, so now.
From your community.
10 more minutes.
And also sorry, lost my train of thought there, to share the tastes in your community and also the work that your chapters are doing. In addition, we want to make sure we have great regional representation of the best slow food producers in the Taste Marketplace. So we value your help in reaching out to those that you have relationships with and encouraging them to consider reserving a booth and a space in the marketplace. You can find all the information about the details and on the website and the exhibitors page. And then finally, please continue to share information about Slow Food Nations and the event with your community. You can share it through the emails that have been sent out, and there's also a Facebook event, Slow Food Nations 2018, on the Slow Food USA page. And I think those are my highlights for today. I know, Anna, you've been answering some questions, but are there any that we need to address?
There was one question about the location. I just said it will be in downtown Denver, but we're not sure. We haven't confirmed the exact location. As Krista said, we are bringing in the footprint, so it'll be less walking in general, but the specific location has not yet been confirmed. Someone asked about, do we have the program available with times and costs of summits and workshops and free activities? I said that will come out in mid-April, the full program and other ticketed events. Charity is asking, any idea how long the morning workshop slots will be? Krista, do you want to answer that at the Leader Summit?
So thanks, Charity. And we're looking at the timeline for that day. So we'll have more information coming about when we call for the request for proposals in March. I see a question about sorry, it's hard to keep up with those. If we have slow beer folks in mind, this is from Laura Luciano, what are the laws in them bringing product? So I would encourage anyone who, for beer or spirits, to reach out. We're working on if that is possible in the marketplace. There are very specific permitting laws or requirements around that. The majority will be food-based, but I will have more information on that. One of our partners is looking into that with the city. In the meantime, there will also be other ways for Slow Beer to engage, possibly through the Slow Sip Salon. So we are working on what that will look like and would value input. I know that Jennifer, I have a call soon with Jennifer Breckner and who else is joining me on that call? I can't even remember. Anyway, with a few people to talk about Slow Beer and what that might look like at Slow Food Nations. Will we be creating any infographics or copy templates that we want people to share in newsletters and social? Anna, can I let you answer that one specifically?
Yes, I just told Sherry here that we've like just finalized in the last week or two the new creative for Slow Food Nations, and you can see that on the website. But we can definitely package some assets for you guys, social media like Facebook banners, squares. I don't have that for you right now because I don't have it either, but we are working really hard on getting all that together. And I'll share that in the Facebook leaders group once I have a toolkit for you.
There seems to be a lot of chatter about Slow Beer, so I'm going to note that, and then that way we can follow up with everyone. I see, I think Megan Davenport has mentioned that she would be interested in talking about that. So I'll write that down, and when we get something on the books, we'll get everyone involved there.
Mark Anthony is asking, I may have missed this, but are there any opportunities for funding to help get board membership to Slow Food Nations? Krista, do you want to talk a little bit about the scholarships that we have available?
Yeah, we have opened up a process where we have 50 scholarships available for the Leader Summit. What those scholarships include are covering the funding for the Leader Summit. Those scholarships do not include travel or accommodation. And outside of that, we would look toward the chapters individually as to how they might want to organize funding in addition to support getting people to Slow Food Nations. And you can find the information for those scholarships on the website. If there's not anything else, I think I'll turn it over to Elisa to talk about Terra Madre.
Okay, so hi everyone. Excuse me for my English, but it's getting quite late here in the office and I'm alone. So let's start right away by confirming the dates of Terra Madre Salone del Gusto, so from the 20th to the 24th of September in Turin. One of the big pieces of news that I want to share with you as a kind of preview, because it hasn't been shared publicly at the moment, is the location of the event. Building on the success of 2 years ago, the decision was to hold the event outside, so in an open space, and not to go back to the Lingotto pavilions. So this year the event will take place in a new area, which is the Mirafiori neighborhood in Torino. This is a neighborhood that has been historically related to Fiat. and where the Fiat had one of their factories and one part of its production. Nowadays, the Fiat factory has been dismissed and abandoned, but there are still the old structures in place that have been requalified and that we will be using for the marketplace, for instance. So it's a closed but huge area with some covered structures. So some roofs that will protect ourselves from some rain or bad weather if we are not lucky as in 2016. We will also be able to use some classrooms and some meeting rooms of the University of Turin, that has one of their universities in that area. So in the Mirafiori area, we will move there the whole marketplace, so both the Italian and the international exhibitors, all the Terra Madre related activities, forums, meetings, the Terra Madre canteen, the delegates registration areas, also the educational areas that we had in the Valentino Park 2 years ago. There will still be some activations also in the center of Torino, so namely in Piazza Castello and in the surrounding area. So probably the Enoteca and some of the taste workshops and some conferences will be still had in that area. We are currently so once we have managed to finalize and confirm the location, we have started to work on the program and on the possible ways in which we can use the event as a platform to showcase and share what our networks and what our members are doing on the ground. Following the goal to use also the event as a communication platform, both internally for our network, but mainly externally to the general public, we decided and we opted to identify 5 major themes and topics that would be developed in both and will be shared, developed and communicated, both from a communication point of view, but also physically at the event with some dedicated area in the marketplace. The themes that have been so far identified are slow meat, where we'll be able to talk about the need to reduce the quantity of meat consumed every day, native breeds, sustainable way of farming, but also alternatives to meat. So where also all the work that chefs are doing for the Meatless Monday campaign could also find some space. Slow fish is the second area that will be developed. So with the focus on sustainable fisheries and the safeguarding of the oceans. Seeds is the third one, with also the ends to GMOs and to the issues related to also policies and regulations around that topic. Food and health, so the connection between the food and the right type of food and a more sustainable also way of living. And then insects, both talking about edible insects, but also all the pollinators, so bees, and all the insects that will that play a huge also role in agroecology. The idea is to develop those teams with physical spaces where we will have an educational part where people can learn and get some education around those specific teams. A space where we could organize presentations, so a space where delegates can share their experiences and their work around those specific topics, and a space for display and taste. So we really would like to have those spaces as interactive as possible, to be able to engage the delegates and the participants in a very concrete and tangible ways. So what are we now trying and looking at are inputs, suggestions, and ideas about people to involve, stories and experiences to share, and ways in which we can develop those topics in a interactive and positive way. So if you have any suggestions, you can either refer to me or to the regional governors as well, who are with whom we have already shared this information. Moving on, we'll soon, hopefully by the end of January, but it would probably early February, we'll start the application process and recruitment. There will be an online form that delegates could fill in, and we'll also work, especially with the slow food governors, to make decisions on scholarships. So based on the numbers that we will be able to allocate for sponsored delegates to Turin based on the budget that we have at disposal. Anyway, even people can participate and can join us at the event by becoming delegates, but also by simply registering and informing us about their participation. The event is open to the public, so there will be some activities specifically organized for delegates, but once we will be able to create a list of all those people from the US coming, we'll be able to include them in the non-sponsored delegates, but still becoming part of the overall experience. I think that the last thing to share with you is how you can get involved. So it could be sharing and submitting your feedback on the on how we can include your work in the program. So the deadline to submit these ideas is the end of February in order to enable us to collect all the feedbacks from all the networks around the world and start putting something together. You can participate as a delegate or suggest someone from your community to become a delegate. And of course, it would be great to count on your help in knowing who could be the best people to involve in the program and sharing the experiences, work, and best practices in order to make sure to use the event as a platform to give voice to the people who are really doing slow food on the ground. So that was my last thing, so we can leave some time for questions.
Elisa, one question that came through from Max Caruso is, could you estimate for us what a booth at Terra Madre may cost? For example, if Slow Food California wanted to sponsor a booth there.
So the smallest booth, which is a 9 square meter booth, costs roughly 1,200 euros.
Then Mark Anthony is asking about the decision process for who receives the scholarships, and you know, I said it's governors plus you, Elisa, but he's asking, will you decide actual recipients from those who apply, or just determine how to divide up available funds? And you'll be determining actual recipients, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the applications will be submitted to Slow Food International. Elisa will work with the governors on those specific applications and then make the decisions on who will come.
Mm-hmm.
Hope Stanger is asking, how do you find out about teaching or presenting, I guess, at either Slow Food Nations or Terra Madre?
I think that the main, well, you can refer to me for Terra Madre and to Krista for Slow Food Nations, and then we can point out at where we can involve you based on your skills.
Thanks, Elisa. Let me just do this last slide here, and then we can have some more time for questions. Now, fall feels really far away, but I just have like one slide here just to give you a heads up for the rest of 2018. And that is, as always, we are planning to do our membership drive in September. Just like the past 2 years, we'll do another Give What You Can Day on September 15th. In October, we plan to do the Eat Local Challenge again and hopefully make it bigger and better and more international. And then, as always, we'll do some kind of fundraising appeal at the end of the year. So another Give What You Can Day will be on Giving Tuesday on November 11th, and we'll be doing, we haven't decided yet on the exact mechanics of that end of year appeal, but we'll again be working internationally to raise money together. So that's like the 2018 in a nutshell, a very big nutshell. So we wanted to leave some time here for any questions or comments. Marie is asking again, and maybe Richard, you want to take this one, is if you could explain again why we will not have a USA booth at Terra Madre.
Well, The challenge of having a booth and the resources devoted to the booth is something that we have struggled with, especially the last few editions of Terra Madre, where when you walk the booths throughout the Salone del Gusto and Terra Madre, they are primarily for tasting and the selling of goods. And we have really struggled, and you think of 2014, to get products into Italy. We had one staff person who just worked on that one issue with the team in Italy. And I think there's a real quandary about the scale of businesses whom we work with are not poised to open up their products into the European market. They are artisanal and small scale and not with the resources or the desire perhaps to be in the European market. The ones that we could get in there or that are already there are not necessarily reflective of our slow food network. So the logic of us having a booth that has nothing to sell, therefore has difficulty justifying the resources it takes to pull that booth together, a little bit like last year's, the last edition's booth, as a gathering point was marvelous. As a place where we share our insight, and of course we in the US sneak in products to sample into the EU, is great activities. But those activities I think are going to be better served with the pop-ups and the new formation of the interactive areas that Elisa was describing, so that we are more integrated into the global community rather than setting up a booth where our folks congregate and showcase our products. I think it is much more in line with where we continue to hear the most positive feedback from our delegates, from our network, of when we raise money in our local communities to send a farmer or a fisher or a chef who has never had the opportunity to connect with the global food movement. It is that element of connecting to the world, of immersing ourselves in the world that we find there, rather than us showcasing necessarily what we have and do in the US as a standalone. So looking at the staff time, the resources, and the return on investment in terms of what people describe as the most valuable element of us being at Terra Madre, it is always in visiting other booths, visiting and attending other workshops, or presenting at workshops. And I think that with the new setup, the new design of Terra Madre, there is going to be so many more opportunities for our network to present, and to present to a much wider audience than those whom we may attract at the booth. So that is the logic of us not diving into the booth, but actually integrating our presence in the world that is there. Certainly, if we didn't have to overcome trade barriers and all the complexities of getting products into Italy, that would be a very different story. But because it is so difficult, we think energy is better put to direct our teams of talent to the pop-up workshops that will be on the grounds in the new neighborhood. There will be a national meeting, and I think we still should design places for meetups. And there may be a meetup event where we promote Slow Food Nations, and that moment, that tasting, that opportunity will provide some of the opportunities to gather with other Slow Food USA folks who are there. But that is the logic in terms of the time and effort put in just doesn't add up, because we cannot get from a business standpoint, cannot get US businesses there easily. Which is certainly the formula of what happens among other, especially among the other EU booths that are there. And I don't know if Elisa, there's anything you want to add to that, if I'm accurately portraying what the new opportunities are.
The new set or the new format of the event with those 5 interactive areas is also meant to, as you said, to engage and involve the delegates and the participants in a more concrete and tangible ways, and also to give the opportunity to as many people as possible to share their stories and their work with the rest of the Terra Madre network. So there will still be time slot just for let's say for the US delegates, for instance, or for some regional or interregional meetings where you will have the opportunity to connect and network with delegates and participants and people coming from different countries. The fact of having I mean a booth in the market that could be let's say could be certainly and implemented in the number of activities in which the US delegates and participants could take part and could be involved, giving the opportunity to share stories and experiences with a even larger public. So.
Elisa, Laura Luciano also asked, these workshops at Terra Madre would all happen on that Friday for the delegation, or are they throughout the weekend?
No, it's throughout the weekend. So from the Thursday to the to the Monday. So it's those areas will be up and running all days.
If I can, I mean, I know we're already over. I mean, I certainly hear the excitement about having a booth with which to showcase our products and samples. I mean, is that so valuable that we devote the time and energy to staff it as we have done, what is that, 5 or 4 days straight? Versus getting out there and meeting with others and exploring what is out there as opposed to being at the booth. I keep coming back to what farmers, I think of Terra Madre in years past. They didn't come back talking about our booth. They came back talking about the opportunities they had to spend time in other people's world. So this is the logic, but you know, if it is of such extreme value and importance to smuggle our goods in and to share them with the wider world, I really beg to really consider the question, is the booth the best mechanism to do that, or doing it elsewhere? I mean, in terms of, you know, staffing the booth, it's a heroic effort by other delegates, but I have to say it is a challenge because people don't want to be tied to the booth. They're happy that someone else is maybe minding the booth, but they're off at workshops and tastings, and we're really beginning to look at, you know, is that the best way to achieve our goal, which is the exciting perk to Terra Madre is that we get to connect with the world. Because there are other opportunities around pop-ups, and I think that even for Slow Food Nations, there, you know, we've been evaluating whether the state of Colorado tourism would want to have a booth. at Terra Madre. And one of the questions is, do we get lost in the shuffle? Does it seem insignificant compared to all the other booths? As opposed to maybe staging a one-off pop-up, it may actually get more attention and more bang for buck. So this is not to say that we won't have a presence, but I'm not so sure that the booth is what gives us the presence. Well, I want to acknowledge that we are 5 minutes past, and we always do our best to try and stay within the hour, knowing that everyone's time is valuable. Thank you for hopping on time. We were able to start on time. I'm sorry we went a few minutes over. I hope that this begins to shed light on how we will be really relying on you all and hoping that you all can step forward in helping us to not only launch the campaigns, but create an even more meaningful and larger Slow Food Nations and USA presence at Terra Madre this year. And what you can see on the screen is sort of the key faces and with whom you'll be interacting this year. And we're excited that Elisa's echo from across the sea will be minimized, since she will be in Denver sitting there with Krista, and really thrilled that the united front of Slow Food, rather than Slow Food USA or Slow Food International or Italy or New York, is that we will really be operating in a much more fully integrated way as we embrace food for change. So does that sound like we are good to go to wish everyone goodbye? We could unmute everyone, and I don't know if we can do that easily to shout out goodbye and see you all soon. Maybe not doable.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye from New York.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye from Maine. Ciao from Detroit.
Bye from Georgia.
Bye from Miami.
Bye from Chicago.
Bye.